Welcome back to the Gremlin Rooster Ranch channel. In this week's video, you're going to see me tackle a serious electrical issue with the tractor. I have some starter issues, some wiring issues, and I'm going to take you through the process and what I did in order to fix that and try and sort it out. It's not easy, and it's not your average problem. You're also going to see, good grief, you're also going to see an update about the power poles going in. I've got a little bit of progress there, and maybe a few other little tidbits and things that are going on around the house here while we wait for things to make progress. I need my shop back. I am to the point where getting my tools out of a container in a few different places, I need to reorganize and get things done. So stick with me and have a look at what we're doing. When I turn the key, turn the fuel on, when I turn the key on, nothing happens. And so I've replaced this starter switch already, as a couple years ago, but the problem still existed after I did that. So I'm not sure. There's still some power to the dash, and so what I end up having to do is I end up having to take this key, turn it on. I'm going to leave this out so it doesn't actually start. Take my handy wrench, walk all the way around the tractor like this. So reach in next to the fuel filter, here for the juice. And that's how I've been starting it. So the best I can figure is that seeing as how there's power there, it means that the solenoid is bad, and we're gonna put a new starter on it. I'm gonna take the hood off so I have better access. I can't tilt it forward because the loader mount blocks the hood tipping. So we just take it all the way off. It's heavy too. It's all steel. Whatever's in this that causes you to corrode your hand, it's really good to take the grease off an engine. And whenever I'm pressure washing anything like this with a bunch of breather tubes and stuff in it, I always leave the engine running while I'm pressure washing it, so that if you do hit a certain area that's causing issues, that it's ingesting water, you can stop immediately and not just accumulate water. This little gem right here is a starter, and if you're not aware of how it works by putting power through a little wire, low voltage wire here, and that low voltage wire closes a solenoid, which is this big thing here. Now, the solenoid has two sides to it, and think of it as a big switch. The big switch goes and closes, slides forward when there's a little bit of power put to it, and the energy required to close that switch bridges the gap between the two sides, sending power to the motor, which is then driven to the flywheel, which then cranks over the engine. But what we found was, and if you look really closely here, I'm going to try and get you guys in there to have a look. That little wire there, that's a push connector. And before you go and replace this whole thing, I went and inspected the wiring on the new one, which it is pretty much exactly the same, except for this connection here, which is the same as the wire that you just saw that's a push connector, except for this one is I have to screw on, which means that I'll have to replace this end. Now, if you're going to replace the end on something, that's pretty much final destination for whatever part you took off. So I want to make sure that I know what the problem is before I start slamming $600 parts onto a machine that I don't know if it's going to fix it. You can't just take them off and replace them back and forth without making a big mess of wiring. So some more diagnostics was required in order for me to do this. And I'm going to show you exactly what I ran into and what I found. So when I would turn the key switch, the key would do nothing, and there'd be no click from the solenoid closing on that starter. So I assume that the starter's bad. But what ended up happening is that when we put a test light on that wire that would cause enough energy to close the solenoid, we had a little bit of light. And that light was there just all the time. Why would that be? That's not a normal condition for a circuit that was supposed to be open most times until you close it with the key switch. I want to show you what we discovered underneath the dash. Now we pulled the entire loom apart, we cleaned it with some cleaner, but that wasn't enough. And this is the tumbler. Now I've already replaced this tumbler because I figured it was bad, and I found some handiwork that I hadn't noticed before by someone else that puts a couple wires together, and as you can see, that's a bit of an issue. But that doesn't explain why we were getting power fed back through to this wire at all times. So we looked deeper in here, and I found this little cluster of wires right here hanging loose. And that is a package of grounds. Air grounds don't work the best, but this makes sense why we found this issue on the tractor. I had my father over to help me because you're working from two sides of the tractor at different times, using things like an ohm meter to ground different sections of the wiring harness and loom at different places, and made this little bridging wire in order to bridge things. And in order to test this in its final iteration, went and took the connection, which is this connection here. This connection is the main power feed to the harness, and the red wire is the power from the battery. The black wire is the ground, and the blue wire is the wire that goes to the starter, and that energizes the solenoid. So all we did was we bridged this in order to see if the solenoid triggers, and the solenoid didn't trigger. It just made this little weird click noise. That means that the solenoid is actually bad, but we still had that errant wiring issue that was fed back to the wiring harness not having all the grounds connected. And what I believe was going on there was a little bit of power feeding back through the positive wires, hunting for ground through the positive, reversing the flow of electricity through other parts of the wiring loom in order to satisfy the current and load. What does that mean? It means that you'll have some weird dash lights come on. I'll have my light bar that did come on just erratically at different times, and then it would shut off at different times, which is consistent with that ground being connecting, disconnecting while the tractor was moving. So got that ground replaced. We're going to fix up that starter switch tumbler connection, and I'm going to cut the end off now with confidence that by cutting the end off and replacing the starter, because we jumped the solenoid connection, it's going to work. The way that I've been starting it up to this point was with a crescent wrench and bypassing the solenoid altogether and putting power directly to it with a crescent wrench. Boy, the bugs are bad. They're really bad. We're going to pack up for the night, and I'm going to get it this tomorrow and finish it up so we can get back to work. It's going to be so nice to be able to start this tractor off the key instead of having to use a wrench or a hammer for some people in order to start it. It's pretty wild. So my driveway is way over here. Perfect, right? Well, they have to put a brace in here because the power is coming in this direction. They need to brace the pole back, and this is going to be a pole. That yellow stick down there, that's also going to be a pole. So they came in, they put the braces in to show where they want everything installed. Now I explained to the Nova Scotia Power guy that on this pole here, there's actually underground water lines. So he asked for me to mark them where they're at. And so I got some upside down paint and brought the upside down paint over and made a big white mark on the ground to show where that big white pipe is underground. Now this is just a drainage pipe and a gray water pipe, but you can see where they're going to put a brace there and a brace there. And this is the last pole. There's this big power coming in here. They're using the main power lines. They don't use the smaller lines anymore. And see, there's that pipe's going to go all the way up there and towards the barn, and that's going to be the drainage. And I think it actually goes on this side, but I erred on the side of caution, aim for that corner. I know it doesn't come from the far corner. It's either here or there, which is, laws of shooting for the stars. An inch here is a mile over there. Well, the inch matters here, not over there. So, yeah, we're working on it. And an update in the French drain. It is working beautifully. Look how dry the ground is getting. And this rough looking thing, once it all gets backfilled properly and treated, it's going to look great and you're going to be able to drive across it. So before I pull the starter off, I need to make sure that the starter itself doesn't have any live power to it. There's a big positive wire there that I showed you, and that positive wire has a lot of current in it, and I don't want to get electrocuted. And I don't want anything else to break as well if I accidentally arc it with the chassis of the tractor. I'm going to show you exactly why you remove the negative lead on a vehicle instead of the positive lead. So this thing here, this is the negative terminal lead that goes on right there. I've already loosened it off and obviously taken it off, and there's your positive over there. Now, if you're a regular person who doesn't know much about electrical systems, you'll know that all vehicles are pretty much on rubber tires as they roll around. So that means that there's no earth ground. So in order for electricity to work on a vehicle, this electricity has to travel through the vehicle to all the systems and then be grounded back to the battery in order for that circuit to be complete and work. So by removing the ground lead, you remove the chassis ground. Now this is a part that goes astray on a lot of vehicles, because chassis grounds, as we've already kind of seen in the video, and I showed you that little ground that I had to reattach, are the reason why this works. And so if I put this on the positive lead over here, you see how the light lights up? That's because the grounding strap is actually attached to the battery. But if I take the grounding strap off and leave it attached to the grounding strap, you'll notice there's no light. Why would that be important to know and understand? Because this is just one battery, it's one closed circuit. But a lot of vehicles have more than one battery and they have more than one circuit. And the main battery in the vehicle is typically the one that delivers power to that circuit. So you have to make sure you disconnect the negative lead in every battery so that that electricity has nowhere to flow through to. If you disconnect the positive and for some reason there's still a charge left in there, while the ground strap is on, you can still get a discharge and you can still melt wires, you can still break things. If you remove the ground strap and you have no way of that entire system completing its ground, then that means that your system is safe. So that's why you always remove the ground strap when you're doing work in your vehicle. In order to get the starter out, I had to take this fuel filter off. There wasn't enough clearance in order to pull it off. It's really unfortunate because I was hoping that I wouldn't have to do that, but here we are. Before I go and install the new one, I just want to do a visual inspection to make sure that these two units are relatively similar. This looks to be about the same angle, same shape, same bolt hole points. This one's a pain because this one's in behind, so we're going to put this one in first. We'll get it shoved back in, and I'll struggle for the next half hour to get that bolt wound all the way in. If you're a mechanic, you know what I mean, but they look the same. That was every bit the fight I expected it to be because of the shape in which everything is in when I was in there. Yeah, I'm using brake cleaner to clean your hands. It's because I had to take that filter off. The slow drips of diesel fuel on my hands and the tools makes everything extremely slippery. So just by giving it a quick shot and a blast, I wouldn't do this to tools normally, but just to get the diesel fuel off it. Let that dry before you use it. You don't want the sparks in order to ignite because this is highly flammable. So we'll give that a couple minutes to air out because I sprayed it all down to deal with the residual fuel. And now we're going to go back. I'm going to go get the clippers. I'm going to get everything in order to make the connections solid and solder them all together. New starter. That's the replaced filter. And this is the wire we have to put that connector on. And there's one more wire back there that I have to reconnect. And then we'll tighten everything up. And I'll go over to the other side. So, starter's back on. The fuel filter's back on. These two-piece fuel filters are awful in dealing with. I wish I had a different version of this in a modern way, but I don't. And we're all hooked up. You can see I've changed over the lead for that little wire, and the main power feed for the starter is hooked up. You can see that wire that I was working on, and I've got all the soldering done. I've got those two wires put together, and I'm going to use some of this brush on electrical tape, and then I'll wrap it afterwards with regular electrical tape just to put an extra barrier there. We'll hook her all up. So now's the big moment. I got to hook the battery back up, and then we're going to crank it without letting the fuel in because I have to purge the fuel system, but we're going to see if it'll turn over. We have dash lights. Fuel's off. It works. Perfect. So the problem was the starter. We're going to put the tractor back together now, and that's pretty boring. It's not really worth sharing on video. I think that the process of going through the ups and downs of diagnosing an actual tangible problem are therapeutic, and it's a way that I use to take my mind off things. And boy, I have a lot on my mind, not only just building the house, but other things going on around me. I did a whole monologue yesterday about things that I'm seeing and trying to appreciate, but experience and go through. And I don't think I'll share it with you guys because I just don't think it's appropriate. But this is my therapy, is fixing things that you can actually fix. Because at one point in time when these were made, they worked perfectly and they worked great. And I think that that's something that many of you might understand, is getting something back to perfect working order or working properly for your uses is a important thing to do. Other people work on themselves, and other people read books and do different things in order to satisfy themselves. Me, I fix all the things that are broken around me, which are technically all vehicles. So, or build something, or the house is going to be therapy in itself. You're watching me deal with my stress and all the things I have rattling around in my brain and all the experiences I've had as of late, trying to resolve them by fixing a problem that I know how to fix, because there may not be ways for me to actually fix some of the other problems that are going on in the world that are bothering me. And I hope you have some way of dealing with that too. I don't know what it is. You can leave a comment to share what you do. I get out on the motorcycle, go for little drives and big trips at times. For the most part, I end up huddled over my tools with greasy hands, covered in fuel and oil, trying to fix whatever I have that's broken or just not working right. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Take care of yourself, and thanks for watching. Bye now. Trying to get you to see it here. Listen to this. Oh, of course they're not noisy right now. There's baby birds in the eaves.
Where's that bug spray?
Very screechy.